Human existence is often seen as a singular experience, but what if we told you it's part of a far greater journey, one that spans across many lifetimes? Imagine your soul as an eternal traveler, always evolving, always learning, and always growing through the infinite cycles of life and death. This concept is rooted in the idea of the wheel of life, which is present in various spiritual traditions. Picture this wheel, constantly turning, with your soul experiencing multiple lifetimes, each a new chapter, each offering its own lessons, and opportunities to awaken further to its true nature. In Eastern traditions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism, this cycle is known as samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The idea is that your soul reincarnates, taking on new forms and facing new challenges, all in the pursuit of enlightenment and liberation. But this process isn't random. It's carefully crafted to allow your soul to grow, evolve, and purify itself, ensuring that each life is a stepping stone toward greater understanding. But what really makes this journey unique is the interplay between karma and free will. Karma isn't about punishment or reward, as many people misunderstand. It's simply the law of cause and effect applied to the soul's journey. Each choice you make, every thought and intention you have, creates a ripple that influences your future experiences. And here's where free will comes in. Unlike a rigidly predestined path, the soul has the power to choose how it reacts to the lessons of each life, how it handles its circumstances, and how it shapes its own destiny. Free will allows you to move beyond the constraints of fate and truly navigate the wheel of life with purpose. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads, and your past actions have brought you to this point. You could choose a path of love, understanding, and wisdom, or one of hatred, revenge, and selfishness. Each decision will shape your future, affecting not only your own soul's journey, but the interconnected souls you encounter. It's like a grand web, where your actions have an impact on others, and vice versa. And as you move through this wheel, you accumulate wisdom, empathy, and ultimately a deeper understanding of your true self. Now let's zoom in on the deeper aspects of this journey. Imagine your soul is like an artist, slowly and patiently working on a masterpiece. Each incarnation is like a stroke of the brush, adding more depth, texture, and meaning to the canvas of your existence. The soul takes on different roles throughout its many lives, sometimes as a victim, sometimes as a villain, and sometimes as a teacher or a student. Each of these roles serves a purpose in helping the soul realize the interconnectedness of all things and develop the virtues needed to transcend the cycle of reincarnation. And there's a greater purpose behind it all. The soul's ultimate goal is liberation, freedom from the binding forces of karma, the ego, and the illusions of the material world. At some point, when the soul has learned enough, it no longer needs to reincarnate. Instead, it reaches a level of spiritual maturity where it can choose to transcend the physical plane altogether, leaving behind the endless cycles of birth and death. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like an abstract philosophical idea, right? Well, let me share a real-life example that might make all of this a bit clearer. Think about a person who seems to constantly face challenges, whether in relationships, work, or health. You might look at their life and think, why are they going through so much hardship? But if you take a step back and look at it through the lens of karma and the soul's evolution, you might begin to see that these challenges aren't random. They're opportunities for growth, chances to learn compassion, patience, and understanding. When you look at life this way, you start to realize that each trial you face might not be a punishment, but a valuable lesson that helps you evolve and become a wiser, more conscious being. So rather than feeling defeated by the challenges that life throws at you, try to embrace them as part of your soul's journey. Each experience is like a tool that shapes you, refines you, and helps you move closer to your true essence. So, what is this true essence and why is it so important? At its core, your essence is divine. It's the spark of life within you, a reflection of the larger divine source that connects all things in the universe. The soul's journey isn't just about learning to navigate life's challenges, it's about awakening to this divine nature. The more you let go of your attachments to the ego and the material world, the more you can align with this divine essence. And that, my friend, is the key to spiritual liberation. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore how the soul plans its next life and how spiritual contracts are formed before each incarnation. It's fascinating how our souls are constantly evolving, always working towards that higher state of consciousness. Stay tuned because this journey is just getting started, and the insights that await us are truly life-changing. As we continue on this profound journey of understanding the soul's path, we delve deeper into the idea of pre-incarnation planning, a truly fascinating aspect of the soul's journey that often goes unnoticed. Before the soul even enters the physical realm, it undergoes a period of detailed preparation. Think of it as a blueprint for the next life, a life plan designed to maximize spiritual growth and balance karmic debts. This planning isn't imposed on the soul by an external force. Instead, it's a collaborative process guided by the soul itself, with the help of spiritual guides and higher beings who have already walked this path of evolution. It's a sacred and intentional step, ensuring that the soul enters its new life with the right opportunities and challenges to promote growth. During this period, the soul reviews its past incarnations, looks at unfinished lessons, and determines what needs to be resolved in the coming life. The planning includes the circumstances, relationships, and even the physical body it will inhabit. Nothing is left to chance. This is where the soul carefully picks its family, its culture, and the key life events that will unfold. Now, this isn't a random selection. Far from it. The soul's choice of incarnation is deeply intertwined with its past, actions, and what it needs to learn next. For example, the soul might decide to be born into a family with specific traits, challenges, or opportunities, so it can learn about love, forgiveness, or patience. It might choose to experience hardships like illness or poverty to develop empathy and resilience. This process can seem random to us from a human perspective, but on a spiritual level, it's meticulously orchestrated to help the soul grow. This includes not just physical circumstances, but also relationships that play a crucial role in the soul's evolution. The soul's relationships are especially important. The connections it forms with others are part of a grand plan to help each soul evolve. This is where the concept of spiritual contracts comes in. Before incarnation, souls often agree to come together in specific relationships to aid each other's growth. These contracts can involve any number of roles: parents, children, friends, mentors, and even adversaries. These soul agreements are not about punishment or reward. They are about mutual learning and the resolution of karmic patterns. For example, you might have a difficult relationship with a family member or a friend who challenges you at every turn. From a human perspective, it may feel like an unfortunate situation, but from a spiritual viewpoint, this person might have been chosen by both of you to help resolve some past karmic issue. Perhaps they play the antagonist role in your life, so that you can learn forgiveness, understanding, or patience. It's all part of a divine orchestration, a dance of souls supporting one another's evolution, even if it doesn't always feel harmonious in the moment. Of course, the soul isn't bound by fate alone. Free will remains a fundamental part of the process. While the soul plans its incarnation and sets up these karmic contracts, it still has the freedom to choose how to respond to each situation. Free will allows the soul to shape its destiny, to break old patterns and to change course if it desires. This freedom doesn't erase the lessons the soul needs to learn. It simply allows the soul to experience them in its own way, at its own pace. This brings us to a deeper understanding of karma itself. You see, karma is often misunderstood as a kind of cosmic punishment, a system of rewards and penalties. But in reality, karma is simply the law of cause and effect as it applies to the soul's journey. Every thought, every action, every intention creates a ripple effect in the universe. These ripples return to us, often in ways we don't expect, but always at the perfect time for our soul's growth. Karma isn't vengeful. It's not about paying for sins or accumulating credit. It's about learning. Every karmic event is an opportunity for growth, a chance for the soul to understand the consequences of its actions and to choose differently. In the real world, this might look like a situation where a person goes through a difficult time in their career or relationships. Perhaps they've hurt someone in the past, and now they are faced with similar circumstances, learning the same lesson but from a different perspective. Rather than viewing it as punishment, it's helpful to see it as an opportunity to evolve, an invitation to act differently, to choose compassion over resentment, to choose forgiveness over anger. But what happens after the soul leaves the physical body? Does it just disappear into nothingness? No, the soul doesn't cease to exist. It moves into a transitional period known as the interlife. This stage occurs between incarnations, a time when the soul reviews its past life, assimilates the lessons learned, and prepares for the next cycle. During this period, the soul undergoes a life review, where it reflects on its experiences, both the successes and the mistakes. This isn't a process of judgment, but of insight. The soul sees the impact of its actions on others and learns from them. The interlife is also a time of healing. After the emotional and physical strain of a lifetime, the soul needs time to rest and recover. It replenishes its energy, integrates the lessons from its past life, and prepares for the challenges of the next. This period isn't static either. Souls may reunite with family members, mentors, or even soul group companions who help them along the way. Some souls even engage in further spiritual training or choose to assist others still incarnated on earth. It's a time of reflection, renewal, and preparation. But here's the thing. The soul doesn't just float in limbo, waiting for the next life to begin. It actively participates in its evolution, guided by spiritual counselors and higher beings. These beings are there to help the soul grow and make decisions about the next incarnation. The soul might choose to experience more hardship in the next life, or perhaps it will focus on balancing previous karmic debts. It might choose a life where it can practice virtues like compassion, love, or wisdom, or it might take on more challenging circumstances to test its growth. This period is critical because it's where the soul's future journey is shaped. It's a time of making agreements with other souls, forming contracts that define significant relationships and encounters. These contracts aren't set in stone. They are flexible and adaptable. Free will always remains present. If the soul feels it's ready to change course, it can. The soul's evolution is fluid, not fixed, and every new incarnation is another opportunity for growth. As the soul continues its journey, the physical world becomes a testing ground for the lessons it has learned. It may have moments of forgetfulness, where the soul feels disconnected from its divine essence, but it will also have moments of clarity, where it remembers its true nature and the purpose of its existence. And even when the soul forgets, it always carries within it the seed of truth, the spark of the divine, which will eventually guide it home. In the next part, we'll dive into the more complex aspects of the soul's evolution and how it sheds old patterns and attachments. We'll explore how it gradually awakens to its divine nature and what steps it takes to break free from the cycle of reincarnation. Stay tuned, because we're about to embark on an even deeper exploration of the soul's path towards spiritual awakening and liberation. Now that we've explored the fascinating process of the soul's preparation before incarnation and its reflection during the interlife, we turn our attention to the next stage of its journey, the gradual shedding of old patterns, the breaking of karmic cycles, and the evolution toward spiritual awakening. This part of the journey is often marked by profound moments of transformation, where the soul begins to see through the illusions of the material world and awakens to its divine nature. Imagine the soul as a sculptor, carefully chiseling away at the rough edges of its identity. In early incarnations, the soul is often deeply immersed in the material world, attached to the ego and its desires. These early lives are typically focused on survival, identity formation, and dealing with the basic challenges of the physical realm: fear, hunger, pain, and the need for connection. At this stage, the soul is often unaware of its true essence, operating mainly from instinct and responding to life's experiences without deeper awareness. However, as the soul progresses through multiple lifetimes, it begins to awaken to the deeper questions of existence, questions about the meaning of life, its purpose, and the true nature of reality. This awakening doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, often catalyzed by suffering. It's through experiencing pain, loss, and confusion that the soul begins to search for something beyond the material world. This search for meaning is not an accident. It's part of the soul's inherent desire to remember its true nature. But here's the thing. The material world, with its distractions and attachments, can often keep the soul trapped in cycles of suffering. The ego, our sense of separate identity, becomes a barrier to spiritual growth. It's through the ego that the soul gets caught in illusions of power, status, and pleasure, believing that these things will bring happiness and fulfillment. But over time, the soul begins to realize that these external things can never fully satisfy its deepest longing. For instance, you may have encountered someone in your life who seems to chase success, wealth, or fame relentlessly. On the surface, it might appear that they're living the dream, but beneath the surface, there's often an underlying sense of emptiness. This emptiness arises because the soul is not aligning with its true essence. It's seeking fulfillment from the outside, when in reality, true fulfillment comes from within. The more the soul experiences these external distractions and their eventual emptiness, the more it learns that the material world cannot provide the ultimate answers. This realization marks a turning point. As the soul begins to shed the ego and its attachments, it starts to awaken to the subtler aspects of life. It begins to understand that the purpose of its journey is not to accumulate material possessions or achievements, but to evolve spiritually and reconnect with its divine essence. The soul starts to cultivate virtues such as compassion, forgiveness, love, and wisdom, qualities that help dissolve the illusions of separation and ego. Now let's talk about a critical stage in this evolution, the breaking of karmic cycles. As the soul experiences more lifetimes, it accumulates a certain amount of karmic baggage. These are unresolved issues from past lives, relationships that were left unfinished, actions that caused harm, or unresolved feelings of guilt and resentment. It's through these unresolved karmic debts that the soul gets stuck in cycles, repeating similar lessons over and over again. However, when the soul becomes more aware of its true nature, it gains the ability to break these cycles. The key to breaking the karmic cycle lies in how the soul responds to its circumstances. In past lives, the soul might have acted out of anger, fear, or selfishness, but as the soul matures, it learns to respond with love, understanding, and compassion. By doing so, it begins to dissolve old karmic patterns and free itself from the bonds of past actions. This process of breaking karmic cycles is not easy. It requires deep self-awareness, emotional maturity, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But it's also incredibly liberating. As the soul lets go of old patterns and attachments, it begins to experience greater freedom. This freedom is not just external, freedom from suffering, from the limitations of the material world, but an inner freedom, the freedom to act in alignment with one's true nature. When the soul reaches a level of awareness where it no longer feels the need to reincarnate compulsively, it moves toward spiritual liberation. This is the ultimate goal of the soul's journey, a state of enlightenment where the soul is no longer bound by the laws of karma, where it is free from the ego, and where it exists in a state of perfect unity with the divine source. In this state, reincarnation becomes a conscious choice, not a necessity. Some enlightened beings choose to reincarnate, but not out of karmic obligation. They do so out of pure service to humanity, to help others awaken and evolve. Take, for example, spiritual figures like Buddha, Jesus, or Krishna. These beings have reached the highest level of spiritual evolution. They no longer need to reincarnate for their own growth, but they choose to return to the material world to assist others in their awakening. Their presence is a beacon of light, guiding humanity toward a higher consciousness. They don't seek personal gain or glory. Their purpose is to serve, to teach, and to lead by example. The lessons that these enlightened masters impart transcend dogmatic beliefs. At their core, they emphasize love, compassion, forgiveness, and unity. They teach that the key to transcending suffering is not found in external circumstances, but within, the ability to recognize one's divine essence, to act with wisdom, and to cultivate unconditional love for all beings. Their teachings inspire not just spiritual growth, but collective evolution. But the work of these enlightened beings doesn't stop with their teachings. Their influence continues through their disciples, through their example, and through the light they've ignited in others. And here's the most important part. You don't have to be an enlightened master to make a difference in the world. Each and every one of us, at our own level of consciousness, can contribute to the collective. Awakening, by acting with compassion, spreading love and seeking truth, we can help others on their journey and in turn evolve ourselves. So, what does this mean for us in our everyday lives? It means that life is not a random set of events. Everything we experience, every relationship, every challenge, every moment, is part of a grand plan for our soul's evolution. We are all interconnected, and the choices we make, both big and small, shape our journey and the journey of those around us. By understanding the deeper purpose of our lives, we can navigate our experiences with greater awareness, compassion, and love. In the next part, we will explore the ultimate goal of this soul's journey, spiritual liberation. What does it truly mean to be liberated from the cycle of reincarnation? How does the soul transcend the material world and return to its divine essence? Stay tuned, because this is the final stage of the soul's journey, and it's one that leads to profound freedom and enlightenment. We've journeyed through the soul's process of pre-incarnation planning, the evolution through lifetimes, and the gradual shedding of ego and karma. Now we arrive at the final stage, the culmination of the soul's journey towards spiritual liberation. This stage represents the highest goal, the soul transcending the cycle of reincarnation, shedding all illusions, and returning to its divine essence. The idea of spiritual liberation is central to many spiritual traditions. In Hinduism, it's known as moksha, the liberation from the endless cycles of birth and death. In Buddhism, it's nirvana, the extinguishing of desire and suffering, the ultimate state of peace and enlightenment. In Western spiritual traditions, it's often referred to as ascension or the return to unity with God. The names might differ, but the essence is the same: freedom from the material world, from the constraints of the ego and from the illusions of separation. It's a return to a state of pure consciousness, where the soul recognizes its oneness with the divine source. Now, achieving this liberation isn't about escaping the physical world. It's not about running away from life's challenges or avoiding suffering. Instead, it's about transcending the illusions that keep the soul bound to the material realm. The physical world, as we've discussed, is not a meaningless place of suffering, it's a learning ground. The soul enters the physical realm to experience contrast, light and darkness, pleasure and pain, love and fear. And through these contrasts, it learns, grows, and evolves. But as the soul matures, it begins to understand that these opposites are just that, temporary illusions. They are not the essence of who we are. The true essence of the soul is love, wisdom, compassion, and unity. As the soul sheds its attachments to the ego and to the material world, it begins to experience the world through the lens of this higher consciousness. The soul no longer sees itself as separate from others, but as part of the interconnected web of existence. It understands that all beings, all lives, all experiences are interconnected, and that true peace comes from embracing this oneness. So, how does the soul achieve this liberation? The journey towards liberation is one of constant self-awareness and self-transformation. The soul must first recognize the illusions of the ego, the belief that we are separate from one another, the attachment to material possessions, the desire for power, status, and control. These illusions keep the soul locked in a state of duality, where it experiences suffering, conflict, and separation. Once the soul begins to see through these illusions, it starts to break free. The process of breaking free often involves the dissolution of the ego, the shedding of past attachments, and the cultivation of virtues like unconditional love, forgiveness, and compassion. The more the soul aligns itself with these virtues, the closer it gets to its divine nature. It becomes more attuned to the spiritual truths that have always been present, even if they were obscured by the layers of ego and illusion. This process is deeply personal, but it's also universal. Each soul has its own path, its own pace, and its own lessons to learn. No two journeys are the same, but they all lead toward the same ultimate goal: liberation. And when the soul reaches a certain level of maturity, it becomes aware that it no longer needs to reincarnate out of necessity. It no longer needs to cycle through life after life to learn new lessons. It has learned what it came to learn, and now it can choose to move beyond the cycle entirely. This is where spiritual masters come into play. Enlightened beings like Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, and others have reached this level of spiritual evolution. They no longer need to reincarnate for their own growth, but they choose to return to the physical realm to help guide others on their journey. They serve as beacons of light, helping humanity move closer to the same state of spiritual liberation. These masters are not bound by karma. They are free from the cycle of reincarnation, but they choose to reincarnate out of love, compassion, and a deep desire to help others awaken. For example, Buddha reached the state of nirvana, transcending all suffering and attachment. He no longer needed to be reborn, but he chose to stay in the world, teaching others how to free themselves from suffering and reach enlightenment. His message was one of compassion, mindfulness, and the dissolution of the ego. Similarly, Jesus chose to incarnate to spread a message of love, forgiveness, and unity with God. Their teachings were not just about personal liberation, but about collective evolution, about helping others awaken to their divine essence. These masters embody the highest state of spiritual evolution, but their role is not to carry the burden of humanity's spiritual growth. They provide the tools, the teachings, and the example. The real work of spiritual awakening must be done by each individual soul. They are not here to do the work for us, but to show us the way. The true path to liberation lies within each of us. We must apply the lessons, cultivate the virtues, and walk the path ourselves. But this doesn't mean we are alone on our journey. Throughout the soul's evolution, it forms connections with other souls, soul groups. These are groups of souls that reincarnate together over multiple lifetimes, supporting each other's growth. These souls may be family members, friends, mentors, or even adversaries, but their connection is part of a larger plan. These soul groups help each other resolve karmic debts, learn important lessons, and grow toward spiritual enlightenment. Soul groups are not limited to physical relationships. They can also include guides and teachers from the spiritual realm. These guides help direct the soul's journey, offering wisdom, insights, and sometimes even intervening to help the soul stay on track. But again, the soul always has free will. Even with guidance, it is up to the individual to take the necessary steps to evolve. One of the most powerful realizations that comes with spiritual awakening is the recognition that we are all connected. At the deepest level, we are all one. The soul understands that its journey is not isolated. Every experience, every relationship, every challenge is part of the larger cosmic plan. And in that recognition, the soul finds peace, knowing that it is not separate, but deeply integrated into the fabric of existence. Now, what does all this mean for us in our everyday lives? It means that our lives are not random. Every encounter, every challenge, every experience is part of a divine plan, one that is designed for our spiritual growth. When we begin to view life from this perspective, we start to see that our suffering is not meaningless. It's a tool for growth. We begin to understand that every moment is an opportunity to evolve, to break free from old patterns, and to align more closely with our divine essence. Spiritual liberation is not a far-off dream. It's a process, a journey that we are all on, whether we realize it or not. Each step we take, each lesson we learn, brings us closer to our true self. And as we awaken to this truth, we not only transform our own lives, but contribute to the collective awakening of humanity. So what's the takeaway here? Life is a sacred journey, one that is filled with challenges, lessons, and opportunities for growth. Every soul is on its own unique path, but we are all headed in the same direction, toward spiritual liberation. The key is to walk this path with awareness, compassion, and love, knowing that each step is a step toward the divine. By understanding the interconnectedness of all things, we can navigate this journey with greater peace, purpose, and clarity. When we embrace the teachings of the enlightened masters and apply their wisdom to our own lives, we begin to recognize that the ultimate goal is not to escape life, but to awaken to the truth of who we truly are. And in that awakening, we find freedom. True freedom, the freedom to be who we are meant to be, the freedom to love unconditionally, and the freedom to transcend the illusions of the material world.